Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of Plebdev Diaries.
Hello everyone, I am Hengen, the art guy for Plebeian Studio. For the last couple of months, me and my friends have been working on a game we call Socketpunch. I figured a lot of the stuff we have been doing is pretty cool, so I wanted to document it and show it to you guys. Unfortunately, all my teammates are busy with school and real life, so they won't take part in this episode, so for now it's just gonna be me. But before I get ahead of myself, I should probably mention exactly what it is that we are currently working on. Socketpunch is a game we originally made for Ludum 39 back in April of 2018. It was a simple brawler where the main gameplay loop was simply beating up a bunch of robots while having to connect to a wall socket. It turned out the game was pretty fun and we got some great responses, and all that praise made us want to develop it into a full game, and that's exactly what we decided to do. The scope of the game was just perfect as well, as it was not too big or too little. All we had to do was just expand on the amount of enemies, give the main characters more abilities, and let the player customize his playstyle, and boom, finished. Of course, it isn't just that simple, but you guys know what I mean. So my job is to create all the art assets for the game. I don't want to dwell too deep on what it is the programmers have done up until now, because I don't know much about programming and I won't be able to explain what it is they've done. So I'll just let them explain it in the next video or something. As for me, my laundry list of stuff to do was pretty cool and long. First, I had to make a basic concept art for all the enemies. Since I'm the one 3D modeling, I didn't find it necessary to dwell too long on the small details. I made sure to make the design easy to read with cool silhouettes and recognizable shapes, using mostly strong angles and colors. It was imperative that each enemy stands apart from each other, as the game will be a giant mess with hundreds of enemies on the screen at once. So with all that in mind, I began creating the enemy game assets. When it comes to creating the game assets for Socketpunch, I decided to do it in these steps. First, I box modeled in 3D Studio Max, then I UV mapped in 3D Code because it has pretty good UV mapping tools, then finally I textured in Substance Painter. As you can see on the time-lapse, the model is pretty low poly. This was a requirement for the game as we wanted to be able to have as many enemies on screen at once. The lower the number of polygons, the bigger amount of enemies on screen. Besides that, I had a great time modeling the enemies, as the robots had this perfectly angry and stupid look. When I designed them, I used Warhammer Orcs and 50s sci-fi robots for reference, and it was amazing. There's nothing more I love than a stupid cartoony frown. To force myself to stay consistent in terms of style, I do all my work in bulk. Instead of doing the whole process of each model over and over again, I'll first do all the modeling, then all the texturing, and finally all the animating. This is good for me, but it's a pain in the butt for an eager programmer who wants new finished models. UV mapping is always a drag, but luckily the fun process of texturing comes right after. This is the part I really enjoy doing, as this is the part where I feel you get to be most creative and unfold your art style into the model. I had already created a color scheme or a palette that I had to follow. This made drawing the textures much easier as the base color had already been decided. The aesthetic of the game is very low poly, pixely, and because of optimization, the texture size is going to be very small. This helps lend into the style of the game, giving it a more retro feel. And even though the details don't end up being super crisp and clean, I still think it looks pretty good. I think it was at this point I began streaming on Twitch. It was pretty fun, and even though there weren't too many who watched, I still enjoyed the chill atmosphere of having company while I worked. And it helps to stay focused when you know you're being watched, as you don't want to be caught watching YouTube or browsing Facebook or something else equally stupid. So if you're ever bored, just come to the stream sometime. You'll find me at twitch.tv hengentree. The model you are seeing in the background here is the Buster Droid. He is a big hulking robot who winds himself up and uses giant rockets on his back to come charging towards you. I documented the entire process of creating him, so if you guys are interested, write in the comments and I'll upload that as a separate video. Otherwise, there isn't much else to say or show for now. The next episode I hope to get more into the technical aspects of the game, as they are pretty cool. The way that AI works and the mere number of enemies on screen is staggering, to say the least. So I'm really looking forward to showing that. I also want to say, before I end episode 1, that if you liked what you saw here, make sure to follow us on our social media links. I'll make sure to leave them in the box below. I also want to give a shout out to Amateur Game Dev General, or AGDG for short. You guys are always honest and give great advice. I also want to give a shout out to GameDev Underground and Tim Ruswick for the kind community there and incredibly helpful YouTube videos he creates. And that was it for now. Thank you for watching. This has been Plebdev Diaries episode 1. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, leave a comment, and hopefully I'll see you next time.